our communities 7 days a week.
From healthcare to transportation, politics, and public safety. Whatever the issue, it's our duty to uncover the facts.
And report the stories that impact British Columbians the most.
Because local news matters.
No one connects you to your community better than Global News.
More local news every day.
We are BC's News.
Cool your condo for less with Ashton Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. A Mitsubishi electric heat pump air conditioner is perfect for your condo or townhome. Ashton's dedicated team has worked closely with different strata councils and have installed thousands of heat pumps in condos across Metro Vancouver. Update your condo or townhouse with a new Mitsubishi electric heat pump air conditioner before the heat comes. Visit callashton.com to schedule your no-obligation free consultation today. Ashton Service Group.
Taking a deep dive into our country's beautiful, dark, and sometimes totally bizarre past. This is Canadian History X with Craig Baird on 980 CKNW.
In October 1954, R.K. Anderson, Avro's assistant industrial engineer manager, spoke in front of 250 scientists, engineers, and technicians at an international meeting and stated their new program would be ready by 1956. He didn't name the Arrow, but most believe that's what he was talking about. By 1955, news reports filtered out about a new aircraft being developed by Avro, and on September 16th, the Regina Leader-Post reported that the new aircraft may not have a pilot due to the stresses of such high speeds. It said, at 1,500 miles an hour, a plane is approaching the heat barrier in which ordinary metals such as steel tend to give way. The heat is caused by friction between air and the aircraft. It is believed the pilot will have little to do than take it off and land it, and even this may be done automatically. In February 1956, the Royal Canadian Air Force demanded changes to the fire control system so they would be similar to the firing system in development with the Americans on their Sparrow missile program. The RCF felt this system was more accurate and a better fit for the Arrow. Avro objected to implementing this new fire system because further testing would delay unveiling the plane and increase the cost. But the RCF stood firm and the new system was the Arrow. By the time the Arrow was ready to debut, it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Weighing in at 20,000 kilograms, it had a 15.2 meter wingspan and was capable of speeds faster than any jet in its class. With a top speed of 2,104 kilometers, it could fly from Vancouver, British Columbia to St. John's, Newfoundland in just over 2 hours. It could also reach nearly twice the speed of sound at an altitude of 53,000 feet. The refrigeration system of the plane was also so powerful it could produce 23 tons of ice per day, if one wanted it to produce ice, that is. Inside, there was 17 kilometers of wiring and a control mechanism strong enough to lift 6 elephants standing in an elevator. Now completed, it was time for its big unveiling, and the day turned out to be one of the most important days in human history, but not because of the Arrow. Major events can sometimes be overshadowed by another momentous event on the same day. This is what happened on the morning of June 25th, 2009, when 1970s icon Farrah Fawcett died of cancer. As news of her death spread, 12 hours later, Michael Jackson died. News of his death caused websites to crash, Google believed it was under attack by hackers, and global internet traffic increased by 20%. It was a major event, overshadowed by another, which is what happened on October 4th, 1957. On a warm autumn day, 12,000 gathered at the Avro plant to see the Avro Arrow emerge from the hangar, and the paint was still wet. Ian Austin, a journalist in attendance, said, "It swept back at Delta wings and early electronic flight controls with the look of tomorrow, as did its blinding white, matte black, and day-glow orange paint." Air Vice Marshal Hugh Campbell said, "The Arrow, including its missiles, flight trail, and fire control systems, we believe will become a very important component of North American air defense." Everyone wanted to touch the plane to make sure it was real. One man in the crowd broke through the rope cordon and ran to check out the wings and belly. Several others kicked the tires, which were set to 200 pounds of pressure. Others stuck their fingers in any vent they could. Jan Zurakowski, the test pilot who would take the plane to the sky, said, "She'll do. Easy to fly. She'll be the easiest flying plane ever built." And the final cost of that first plane? $6 million. But amid the hoopla, several reporters raised concerns. There was a worry about the noise. Anyone living within 3 to 4 kilometers of the plane would have their home rattled by the sonic booms. The Calgary Herald questioned if it would be useful by the time it was ready to roll out. It said, "Will the Arrow, which will not be in a squadron service until 1961, be outdistanced soon by rockets? This is a real contest the Arrow will face, not against Russian bombers, which she can magnificently demolish, but against the timescale of rocket misery, which has rapidly compressed her useful fighting life." The article added that no matter what the concerns were, there was no way the Arrow would be cut from production because by 1957, it was one of the biggest employers in Canada. It stated, quote, "It should be said, if only for the benefit of the 20,000 Canadians whose jobs depend on the project, that in the current defense economy, the Arrow is as safe as a church." The Ottawa Citizen speculated that the jet could be used to carry nuclear bombs and Canada's involvement in building bombs. Its headline said, "Avro's new jet is platform for launching H-bombs." So what overshadowed the Arrow? October 4th, 1957. Sputnik. On the other side of the planet, the Soviet Union sent Sputnik 1 into low Earth orbit, and it changed everything. Sputnik was a simple polished sphere 58 centimeters in diameter with 4 external antennas broadcasting radio pulses. Humanity had entered the space age. The small satellite orbited the Earth at a speed of 8 kilometers per second at a height of about 500 kilometers above the Earth. After 6 months, Sputnik re-entered the atmosphere, and in that time, it had orbited the planet 1,440 times. Within 12 years, humans would walk on the moon, and in 60 years, spacecrafts Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 would be traveling outside the solar system. Sputnik had also changed the art of war. Since the first atomic bomb was dropped in 1945, destructive instruments of war were transported by bombers. The arrival of Sputnik meant the nuclear bomber would be fast becoming extinct in favor of intercontinental ballistic missiles. No matter how fast the Arrow could fly, there would be no match. The death of the Arrow began the day it was born. A month and a half after Sputnik fell back to Earth, the Avro Arrow took flight for the first time with Jan Zurakowski at the helm. I've mentioned him a few times already, but waited to delve into his impressive resume until now. Zurakowski was born in 1914 in present-day Ukraine. As a teenager, he learned to fly gliders before joining the Polish Air Force in 1934, and he graduated a year later. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, Zurakowski took his outmoded PZL P7 trainer to the air against 7 German planes. He damaged 1 before he was forced to retreat after his guns jammed. When Poland was defeated, Zurakowski made his way to England using forged documents. Thousands of Polish Air Force pilots like Zurakowski joined France and England to fight the Germans. Zurakowski took part in the Battle of Britain in 1940 before he was reposted as a flight instructor. Following the war, he remained in Britain to train pilots because he was considered to be one of the best aerobatic pilots in the United Kingdom. He would fly 3 different types of planes, and following the war, he moved with his family to Canada and became a test pilot for Avro in 1952. He had ice in his veins and nerves of steel, and on March 25, 1958, he was ready to make history at 9:53 a.m. when he took the Arrow on its first flight. It lasted 35 minutes and was problem-free as Zurakowski put the aircraft through its paces. After the flight, Zurakowski, a man of few words, said it had excellent handling and, quote, "It's a beauty." When we return, we're going to continue our look at the Avro Arrow and its very unfortunate demise.
This is Canadian History X on 980 CKNW.
Right goal. What about the keeper? Yeah! Every goal. Oh, finish that is. Every match. We don't get it. Vancouver Whitecaps Walker on AM 730. The match is over. Takaoka saves it at the death. And the Whitecaps are Canadian champions once more. AM 730, the home of Whitecaps FC play-by-play.
BC Ferries is hiring now for over 500 positions throughout the coast this spring and summer. Join for a season or stay for a career. Set your course. Apply today at bcferries.com/careers.
Do you suffer with gut pain, diarrhea, moderate IBS, even Crohn's? This is pharmacist Alan Glasser. I have all natural solutions to help resolve gut pain. See me today, Mark's Pharmacy, 8120 Street, Delta. Don't live with gut pain one day longer.
A customer walks in, you say hello. But how do you say hello to customers when they're everywhere and your door is virtual? Think Coors Creative Services to help you reach your audience wherever they are. Say hello to CoorsCreative.ca.
There's just one name to know in Greater Vancouver to save on all your insurance needs. Johnston Meyer. From ICBC Auto Plan Renewal to home, travel, RV, boat, personal, and business insurance. Johnston Meyer has you covered. With convenient offices all over the Lower Mainland, family-owned Johnston Meyer has built 50 years of trust in your community. So call, drop into an office, or visit them online at jmins.com. You can get a comprehensive quote there too.
Ken and Sean Mayhew of Penfolds Roofing talk about timing.
It's springtime, the ideal time to book your roofing project with us.
And not just because the weather's right, because we're the 85-year roofing pros, locally owned and operated with the best installers in the business.
We guarantee a safe, clean, quality installation every time.
Book your Penfolds roof today. With flexible financing, products that fit all budgets, and unbeatable warranties, trust PenfoldsRoofing.com.
1-877 Car for Kids. KARS Car for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Donate online at carsforkids.ca. That's cars with a K. It's quick and easy. You'll benefit a child and get a maximum tax credit.
1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Donate today. The thought may be gone tomorrow.
How much Sea Lovers fish and chips is all you can eat? Every day, anytime. All you can eat fish and chips at Sea Lovers plus bottomless pop, just $19.99 plus tax. Truly the best fish and chips in town. Find them at sea-lovers.com.
The local news to 10:30. Good morning. I'm Kareem Gouda. Vancouver police say there are no known injuries after a shooting in broad daylight in downtown Vancouver Saturday. As Global's Joshua Azizi reports, shocking video shared on social media lays out what happened.
The incident unfolded near Robson and Richard Street at 5:30 p.m. Saturday. A video of the shooting posted online shows two people running out of a vehicle and rushing up to an SUV ahead of them. Then they both begin firing a gun inside of it. The SUV moves forward, T-boning a vehicle ahead of it, and then someone runs out from its passenger side. The two gunmen fire more bullets before escaping. All of this happening in the middle of a downtown Vancouver street with plenty of pedestrians and witnesses nearby. Some can be seen running away in the video. In a news release, Vancouver police say evidence indicates the shooting was targeted. There are no known injuries, and so far, no arrests have been made. Witnesses or anyone with information are asked to contact the VPD's Major Crime Section. Joshua Azizi, Global News.
And rescuers say a stranded orphaned killer whale cat has become closer to leaving the lagoon off Vancouver Island. But it has been reluctant to pass a sandbar where its mother got stranded last week and died. Now Fisheries and Oceans Canada officials are deciding what's next while they're reevaluating techniques that have been used so far. A departmental spokesperson says the operation is highly complex and the whale calf appears to be in good condition, noting they are monitoring the whale's health on an ongoing basis. Global News time, it is 10:31. Now for a check on the forecast. It'll be sunny today with a high of 13 degrees, but closer to 16 degrees inland. And then tonight it will be clear, but the foggy patches will roll in again overnight, getting down to a low of +5 before burning off Monday morning, where it's going to be sunny again and a high of 15 degrees, but almost 18 degrees inland. And at night, clear and a low of 7 degrees. Outside CKNW in downtown Vancouver, the sun is shining, it's 8 degrees, and it is 10:32. I'm Kareem.
Exploring the good, the bad, and the weird. This is Canadian History X with Craig Baird on 980 CKNW.
The Avro Arrow was unlike anything built for the air before. A mere 50 years after the Wright brothers first took flight, and 45 years after Canada first took flight with the Silver Dart, the Avro Arrow rolled out to awe and wonder. It was a legendary aircraft that ignited the minds of Canadians for what was possible. But as soon as it had hit the air, it would be pulled back and mothballed. The story of the Avro Arrow is one that has only grown in legend and time. There is much more to tell of this story, from Deef's role in its demise, what happened to the company, and how a bunch of men from Avro went on to help humans land on the moon a decade later and help a passenger airline become the first supersonic jet. So, let's continue our journey into the story of the Avro Arrow. 9 days later, on the Arrow's third flight, it went supersonic. On the seventh flight, it broke the sound barrier at 50,000 feet while climbing. A top speed of Mach 1.98 was reached, but engineers said it could be pushed further. And with such favorable outcomes, Avro began working on the Arrow Mark II. But dark clouds loomed on the horizon, and before the decade was over, the revolutionary aircraft would be dead. The Avro program was amazing, but it came at a very high cost. The jets were expensive, $6 million each, or $63 million today. An estimated $400 million was put into diverting funding from other military programs. Sputnik rewrote the book on nuclear warfare, and while the Avro Arrow was one of the fastest jets in the world, other countries like France, the United Kingdom, and the United States were already developing their own comparable jets, and the Avro Arrow had another enemy: politics. In 1948, Liberal leader Louis Saint-Laurent became Prime Minister, and Canada underwent a transformation. Under his watch, the Trans-Canada Highway, St. Lawrence Seaway, and Trans-Canada Pipeline were all initiated. Canada took its first steps towards Medicare and the creation of RRSPs, and a strong social safety net during this time as well. The Liberal Party governed Canada since 1935. Progressive Conservatives were led by the dynamic John Diefenbaker. He had a fiery-speaking style, and he was very magnetic. Thousands would attend his rallies around the country, and on June 10, 1957, he won the election and became Prime Minister of Canada with a minority government. Government spending had increased since the end of the Second World War, and now in power, Diefenbaker looked to cut costs. Avro Arrow was firmly within his crosshairs. It also didn't help that Crawford Gordon Jr. and Diefenbaker didn't see eye to eye. Gordon was closely tied to the Liberal Party, while Diefenbaker led the Progressive Conservatives. After their first and only meeting, which lasted barely 20 minutes, Diefenbaker called Gordon a rude drunk who puffed smoke in his face. Diefenbaker didn't drink nor smoke. Two of his advisors, Minister of National Defense, Major General George Perks, and Chief of Staff Committee Chair, General Charles Folks, recommended abandoning the Arrow in favor of the new American-built Beaumark missiles. These got worse for Avro on March 31, 1958, when another federal election was held and Diefenbaker won the largest majority in Canadian history. On April 22, 1958, the Defense Research Board advised the government against any sort of cancellation because the Avro would be a useful weapon system for several years to come. The future of the Arrow hung in the balance and depended really on what the Russians would do next. The Ottawa Journal reported if the Russians moved towards ICBMs, the Avro would be obsolete. If they continued with bombers, the Avro would have an impact. The newspaper stated, such a government decision would be changed overnight if intelligent reports out of Russia provided reliable information. The Union planned to halt bomber production soon. On August 11, 1958, Major General George Perks, the Minister of National Defense, requested that the Arrow program be cancelled, but the Cabinet Defense Committee refused to do so. In September, Perks again put forward the request to cancel the Arrow. The request included a plan to install the Beaumark missile system in Canada. The Beaumark missile was the world's first long-range nuclear-capable ground-to-air anti-aircraft missile. Diefenbaker entered Canada into an agreement with the United States to purchase 56 Beaumark missiles, which would be deployed in Quebec and Ontario. The missile system would cost less than half the Arrow program. The committee accepted the installation of the missile system, but again refused to cancel the Avro Arrow program. The committee wanted to wait until a major review of the program would be available on March 31st, 1959, but Diefenbaker already had his mind made. He said it was obsolete, adding, "There is no purpose in manufacturing horse collars when horses no longer exist." Amid all the uncertainty, though, Avro continued to work on its revolutionary plane. On August 2nd, 1958, the second Avro Arrow took flight and remained in the air for 75 minutes. 3 weeks later, it hit 1,400 kilometers an hour and reached 50,000 feet. For the government, success meant nothing. On February 20th, 1959, thousands of Avro employees went off to work, and then in a flash, everything changed. In the House of Commons, Prime Minister John Diefenbaker stood up and declared that the Avro program was dead. The decision had come down to costs and the fact jet fighters were going to be obsolete as we entered the missile age. Diefenbaker had agreed to purchase Bombard missiles from the United States and couldn't afford to do both. Avro management was completely caught off guard. They had known the program was in jeopardy, but they did not expect a decision before March 31st. The company hoped to fly the Arrow Mark II before then and set new world speed and altitude records to gain public support. Crawford Gordon said, "We've received wires from the government instructing us to cease all work immediately on the Arrow and the Iroquois program at Malton and by all suppliers and subcontractors. As a result, notice of termination of employment is being given to all employees. We profoundly regret this action, but we have no alternative since the company received no prior notice of the decision, and therefore we were unable to plan any orderly adjustment." With the news of the program's demise, Avro Canada laid off 14,528 employees. There was speculation that the move was meant to embarrass the government and force it to walk back its decision, but Executive Vice President Fred Smee said there was no alternative after the program was cancelled. The Avro Arrow supply chain was impacted as well, and another 15,000 people lost their jobs. The day of February 20th, 1959 has become known as Black Friday in the aerospace industry. The Arrow staff were not the only ones caught off guard by the decision. The Ottawa Journal reported the House of Commons was shocked, stating, "It was evident by the hush that fell over the House this morning that the members had not expected the pronouncement of the Arrow death sentence almost 6 weeks ahead of deadline." Liberal leader Lester D. Pearson called for a complete review of defense policy, stating, quote, "Where are we going from now on this vital matter?" General Charles Folks, chairman of the Canadian Chiefs of Staff, blamed the cancellation of the program on high costs and the lack of foreign orders. He stated, "Therefore, because of these reasons, it is now possible that we may have to abandon the policy of developing and producing special Canadian equipment for the limited requirements of the Canadian forces." Diefenbaker issued a statement on that day where he again said the Arrow was obsolete. He said, "By the middle 1960s, the missiles seemed likely to be a threat and a long-range bomber relegated to supplementing the major attack by these missiles. This decision is a vivid example of the fact that the rapidly changing defense picture requires difficult decisions, and the government regrets the inevitable impact of it upon production, employment, and engineering work in the aircraft and related industries." Baker added, "The examination had been made in light of all information available considering the probable nature of threats to North America in future years, the alternative means of defense, and the estimated costs. The conclusion is that the development of the Arrow should be terminated now." An attempt was made to provide the completed Avro Arrows to the National Research Council of Canada as a test aircraft, but the council refused it because they couldn't supply spare parts, staff, or trained pilots. Then, in the shocking decision, the government ordered the destruction of all Avro aeroplanes, blueprints, models, and designs. And many are still baffled by this. But in July 1959, the engineering marvels of their time were unceremoniously cut to pieces by blowtorches. The Victoria Times columnist reported, "The remains were left on a concrete flight apron to be taken away and disposed of as scrap metal." Rumors swirled that Diefenbaker ordered all evidence of the plane's merits destroyed to avoid future embarrassment, while others said it was for security reasons. Some believed the CIA was involved in terminating it because it could outperform their own top-secret U-2 spy plane. Amid the destruction, a story emerged that Air Marshal W.A. Curtis had hidden an Arrow away. In 1968, he was asked if the rumor was true and he said, "I don't want to answer that." And while no intact, full-size Avro Arrow has ever been found, the legend persists. There's one somewhere out there in Canada. It's not easy to hide, and after 7 decades, if you haven't found it, it likely doesn't exist. Full-sized working arrows may be long gone, but in 2018, one of the test models was discovered. Below Lake Ontario, a small bit of history and an engineering marvel was found covered in sediment. The official death of the arrow, much like a rock thrown into a pond, caused ripples, affected many people, and took down a politician.
This is Canadian History X on 980 CKNW. Here's what's happening on CKNW.
The Vancouver Canadians regular season opens April 9th. Listen to Mornings with Simi to win a 4-pack of tickets. And play the Name That News quiz every Friday to win a $100 gift card to White Spot. Your Vancouver Whitecaps take on LA April 13th. Win a pair of tickets on The Mike Smith Show. Jeff Lynn's ELO will be at Rogers Arena August 28th. And the Jazz Joe Hall Show has your chance to win tickets.
Details at cknw.com.
Monson Group introduces Portico, a unique low-rise in the sought-after neighborhood of West Coquitlam. Located on a quiet street and only 10 minutes away from the SkyTrain station, Portico is the first development in Coquitlam to offer enclosable glass balconies and 10-foot ceilings. Monson Group has crafted these homes with the highest level of attention to detail, along with unique customizable options to maximize versatility. Register today for more details at lifeatportico.ca.
IHOP has omelets for every occasion. Feeling spicy? Get the spicy poblano. Get in sport mode with spinach and mushroom omelet. Have a hankering for something meaty and cheesy and also crispy and kind of mega? Well, we just launched the meaty, cheesy, and crispy mega omelet. Buy one of our 8 omelets and hurry in today to add cinnamon dippers for all the diet. Only in IHOP. Smile on your plate. For a limited time only, limit one add-on order of cinnamon dippers for $1 per omelet order while supplies last.
Canadians want to be informed. That's why more Canadians than ever are turning to Global News at globalnews.ca, one of the most visited news sites in Canada, on YouTube, where Global News is the #1 news source in the country, with the Global TV app, or streaming Global News 24/7 on a smart TV for the most extensive news coverage available on all platforms. Canada's trusted source for news. Global News.
911, what's your emergency?
Please help! My mom's in hurt!
We're gonna get you both out.
Birthday on Global.
Let's go, let's go!
When disaster
You're
strikes,
starting under its classic game fire.
they answer the call.
We're in the business of saving lives.
Careful!
Come on.
She's breathing!
There is always a reason to fight for another day.
Help is coming!
I'm ready to
An all-new episode of the hit series 911, Thursday on Global. Stream on Stack TV.
Canadian Blood Services is pleased to share some important news.
Now even more of us can make all the difference to patients across Canada.
If you lived or spent time in the United Kingdom, Republic of Ireland, or France during the mad cow disease outbreak, you may now be eligible to donate blood and plasma in Canada and help ensure that patient need will continue to be met now and into the future.
Visit blood.ca or download the Give Blood app to learn more. Together, we are Canada's lifeline.
Taking a deep dive into our country's beautiful, dark, and sometimes totally bizarre past. This is Canadian History X with Craig Baird on 980 CKNW.
It is unknown if the Avro program would have been cancelled regardless of the government in charge. It was a costly endeavor during changing times, so it could have just been a matter of time. Blair Fraser of Maclean's wrote that, unfortunately for John Diefenbaker, his name will always be tied to a death in Canadian aerospace innovation and the joy he got from it. Stating, quote, "Never, not even in June 1957, as Prime Minister Diefenbaker met the press with such well-earned glee as when he announced the discontinuance of our all-Canadian supersonic fighter aircraft, the Avro Arrow." Charles Lynch of the Ottawa Citizen reported, "I for one am convinced the program would have carried through but for Mr. Diefenbaker's open hatred of the Avro company, which he regarded as a pork barrel operation." Diefenbaker tried to counteract this view when he stated, "It was a beautiful aircraft, but I had to make, in the finality, that decision. When one's faced with a problem like this, there's a higher source of strength. If one doesn't have that strength, he can never bear the attacks made on him. I knew that a great industry that had been established would be weakened, but it was right to end it. But then he bought 66 second-hand Voodoo fighters that could only go half the speed of the Arrow, and then the Bulwark missile program also hurt him. That system was met with immense criticism in the 1960s as the anti-nuclear movement grew. That led to the program being abandoned. The Voodoo aircraft and the Bulwark purchases amounted to more than the entire cost of the Arrow program, with little to show for it. Diefenbaker canceled the Avro Arrow only a month after his huge election victory, but it hounded him for the whole time he was in power and beyond. 2 years after the cancellation, Conservative candidates dealt with angry Canadians, especially in Southern Ontario, who spoke of the loss of the Arrow. In the 1962 election, Diefenbaker saw his record-setting majority reduced to a minority government. A year later, his government was out, as Lester B. Pearson and the Liberals were returned to office. The Progressive Conservatives would not win another majority government until Brian Mulroney in 1984. By 1967, Diefenbaker was out as leader and would spend the rest of his life until his death in 1979 as a backbencher in Parliament. The demise of the Arrow was disastrous for Avro. By the time the company closed its doors in 1962, 25,000 people had lost their jobs, and assets were sold for $15.6 million. Avro president Crawford Gordon Jr. never recovered from the Arrow's cancellation. Out of a job, he spiraled, and by 1966, his wealth was mostly gone as he battled alcoholism. He died in New York City of liver failure. His friends said he drank himself to death, unable to get over the demise of the Arrow. The Avro was canceled nearly 7 decades ago, but the legend has only grown since then.
It is the great what if. There's an allure to the Arrow that captures the public imagination, but I think more than anything, it really was a sense of what if we had finished and actually put it into production.
Back in the 1950s, they didn't have computers to test designs. If you wanted to see how something flew, you fired it into the air. So they built prototypes and launched them from this big tarmac. They were 3 meters by 2 meters, or taller than me, but the same wingspan. Or another way, they were 1/8 the size of the Avro Arrow.
Pieces of the Avro Arrow have turned up over the years and found their way into museums. The Canadian Air and Space Conservancy has a full-size replica, while the Avro Museum in Calgary has a flying replica. The nose section of the original Arrow with the words "Cut Here" written on it is on display at the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum in Ottawa. In 1997, a 4-hour miniseries called The Arrow was released on CBC starring Dan Aykroyd as Crawford Gordon. It garnered the highest viewership ever for a CBC program, and it won 6 Geminis in 1998.
You know the story. The RCAF said Mach 2 fighter, 2 place 1,000-mile range. The British said it was impossible. The Yankees tried twice and failed. They said, you're dreaming. We said, fine, we'll build it right here in Toronto. And now you guys, my guys, are saying that it can't be done, that they were right.
Now that's the rocket that we used to get them on up to speed, and then the Austrians